The CSO Partnership for Development Effectiveness, an open platform that unites civil society organizations on issues of effective development cooperation, presents this report to the public, titled Partnering for People's Right to Effective and Sustainable Development. In 2018 to 2019, the world faced deepening global inequality, worsening climate crisis, escalating conflicts and humanitarian threats, expanding corporate capture of development, shrinking and closing civic spaces, and off-track aid and development cooperation reform. In response, we pursued our work on different fronts, while remaining focused on our policy advocacy engagement with the Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation and the 2030 Agenda of the United Nations. CPDE represented civil society positions and policy recommendations on development cooperation in various arenas. For GPEDC, we advanced the grounding of our core advocacy in the realities of constituencies and countries for the 2019 Senior Level Meeting, or SLM, in New York. We contributed to the SLM agenda and outcome document through sustained engagement of the steering committee and our members' participation. We presented our own monitoring of progress in meeting EDC commitments through a CSO report featuring 44 country cases. CPDE also supported a restructure of the GPEDC towards a more meaningful multi-stakeholder partnership, nominating a CSO representative as non-executive co-chair of the Global Partnership. At the OECD Development Assistance Committee, CPDE strengthened CSO engagement mechanisms, while ensuring Southern CSO leadership in the reference group. For the UN, we raised awareness on the effectiveness principles and CSO role in development partnerships. We did this by conducting a study on the voluntary national reviews in 17 countries, in time for the UN High-Level Political Forum. We also contributed towards developing several official policy instruments. And at the Buenos Aires Plan of Action Plus 40, CPDE helped form a Southern CSO alliance, advancing effective South-South and triangular cooperation. We also formulated and disseminated a human rights-based approach framework for South-South development cooperation. We maintained thematic leadership in development cooperation within the Financing for Development CSO reference group and facilitated CSO engagement in the review forum. We expanded our policy advocacy activities too, launching study conferences on development cooperation, climate finance, and security and humanitarian assistance, issues that adversely impact the people, especially those in the Global South. CPDE carried out its effective development and cooperation work in regions, sectors, and countries. In the regions, workshops helped build the knowledge and capacities of CSOs on such topics as monitoring of Nairobi outcome document commitments in the African region, challenges in financing for development in the LAC region, implementing the 2030 Agenda in Europe, public-private partnerships and private sector engagement in the MENA region, and effectiveness of development partnerships in the Pacific. CPDE members also participated in the following important events in the development cooperation arena: Regional Conference on Sustainable Development in LAC and Arab Forum on Sustainable Development in MENA. Publications were released on the topics of SDG implementation in MENA, and aid and militarism in Asia, while campaigns and engagements were conducted to respond to challenges to civic freedoms and attacks on human rights in Europe, climate finance and development cooperation in the Pacific, and the corporate capture of development through development financing institutions in Asia. The sectors similarly sustained policy advocacy and capacity-building efforts around effective development cooperation through workshops, research and publication, and outreach and consolidation. To name a few, the faith-based organizations, migrants, and rural sector led conversations on the Istanbul Principles, as grounded in their contexts. The labor sector worked to align the Trade Union Development Effectiveness Principles with EDC, and advocated for its use in international solidarity work. The international CSOs sector released a publication on the effectiveness of international NGOs, while the feminist group and youth proposed indicators for the GPEDC monitoring framework. CPDE members from the sectors also brought civil society perspectives to such activities as the Financing for Development Review Forum, the annual conference of the Commission on the Status of Women, and the UN Conference on Business and Human Rights, and annual IMF World Bank meetings. At the country level, CPDE sustained CSO actions on effective development cooperation in 43 countries, which were synthesized in a global report. And in response to the global pattern of shrinking and closing civic spaces, we organized a global day of action in 29 countries. As we confronted the said trend of shrinking civic space, CPDE worked more closely with other CSO platforms. Through the Belgrade Call to Action, adopted at the Civil Society Summit in April 2019, we called on UN member states to stop the attacks against development workers and human rights defenders and fulfill the Sustainable Development Goals. Finally, through a strategic planning session with constituency representatives in Stockholm, Sweden, we were able to define our 3-year strategy and assess the viability of our governance and structures. This way, we can adapt to the challenges of the changing development landscape. Our work was supported by 2 complementary programs, anchored on promoting partnerships to contribute to sustainable development. These programs were completed in the period through the funding support of our development partners. All these accomplishments would not have been possible without our dear members and partners. We are most grateful to their unending support towards our advocacy of effective development cooperation. In the face of persistent poverty and inequality and the challenges faced by civil society, CPDE expresses its unwavering commitment to promoting effective and sustainable development. We will remain steadfast in our efforts to learn and improve as a civil society platform as we continue to serve the people.